hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our powerful health tips.
The payment receipts had my name on them. But when we showed up, my daughter told me, "You're not invited." I didn't understand what was happening. My hands were full with her gift. My husband was standing beside me in a clean suit, freshly pressed. I had a corsage pinned to my dress. We had paid for everything, and now we were being erased. The day Emily told us we weren't welcome at her wedding, it wasn't in anger or heat. No, it was calculated, cold, like a message from someone at the front desk of a hotel. And that made it worse. "Mom, Dad, you're not invited. This is my day. Please leave." The words hit me like ice water poured down my back. Not one of them slipped by unnoticed. "Mom, Dad," said like a stranger calling out to people they didn't know. "You're not invited," she said it clearly, directly, without shame. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't struggling to say it. She meant it. This is my day, as if the fact that we existed, that we showed up, was an offense. Please leave, polite on the surface, but it wasn't kindness. It was dismissal. A clear message, go. You're not wanted. My throat went dry. I stood there frozen, holding a box wrapped in silver paper. Inside it was a necklace that had been in our family for 3 generations. It was cleaned and polished. I had been excited to give it to her. I imagined her opening it, smiling, maybe even tearing up. She didn't ask what was in the box. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even look at it. Behind her, some guests had turned their heads, not because they cared, but because we had become a scene. A woman I didn't know gave me a look I can't forget, a mix of surprise and mild irritation, like she was watching someone get kicked off a bus for not having the right ticket. No one stopped to ask questions. No one said a word, not even the groom. I looked at Emily, really looked. Her face was calm, not angry, not conflicted, not sad, just blank. Completely blank, like I was a problem she had to solve before getting back to her big moment. My husband stood next to me, silent. I saw his hand clench, that quiet tension in his jaw that I knew too well, the kind of stillness he used when he was trying not to show pain. He had spent weeks on the phone sorting the photographer contract. He had paid the deposit for the venue from his own retirement fund. She didn't thank him. I thought of the moment she told me not to come to her dress fitting. "It'll be tight, Mom. I'll send you photos." She never did. The day she forwarded us the venue confirmation, we picked this one. "Hope you're okay with it." We weren't included, we were informed. The florist called me for final approval. I paid it quietly. I didn't want to stress her out. "Mom, don't stress me," she said when I asked about seeing the centerpiece mock-ups. "I just want to enjoy this." And I let it go, like I let everything go, because I thought it was what a mother does. And then she told me to leave in front of everyone like we were uninvited guests who crashed her wedding. She turned and walked away. One of her bridesmaids whispered something. They laughed. That sound, her laughing after pushing us away, stuck in my ears. It wasn't just disrespect. It wasn't just selfishness. It was cruelty, cold and practiced. We left quietly with heads held high. We walked up past the floral arch we paid for, past the catering van we arranged, past the chairs we picked out together 6 months ago. We got into the car. I held the box in my lap. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry, not yet. "She threw us away," I said, barely above a whisper. My husband sat back in the seat. We raised a princess and got an ice queen. My heart felt like it cracked down the middle, but I nodded. I thought about the skipped birthdays, the quick replies, the times she said she was too busy to visit, the way she said, "We just need space right now," when we asked if we could stop by. She had been distancing herself for a while, we just didn't want to admit it. She told her friends we insisted on paying. We didn't. We offered with love. She took our money, took our time, took our help, and now she acted like we were strangers. "Stop the car," I said suddenly. "Where?" "Anywhere with Wi-Fi." He nodded, turned off the highway, and pulled into a small roadside cafe. We walked inside, sat down, and opened our phones. The wedding was still happening. The guests were still eating. The music still played. The photos were being taken. But not for long. We still had control. Our names were on the contracts. The payments were pending. We had options. My husband called the venue. I called the florist, then the decorator, the caterer, and the music coordinator. "Yes, I understand the event is already happening, but I'm the one paying." "Cancel it." "Yes, I understand the timing." "Yes, I'm aware it will cause disruption." No yelling, no threats, just calm, cold clarity. She had thrown us away, so we took our gift with us. Within the hour, calls and messages started flooding in, but that was later. In that moment, as we sat at a two-top table drinking cold coffee and making quiet calls, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not bitterness, just finality. She had chosen to cut us out, so we stepped all the way out. She would feel the loss because without us, there would be no music, no dinner, no flowers, no celebration. She wanted us invisible? Fine. Then everything we gave her would disappear, too. We drove home in silence. Not the kind of silence that comforts, but the kind that sinks into your bones. The road stretched long and the sky, once bright with wedding day promise, turned a pale gray. I stared out the window, not really seeing anything. It wasn't just what Emily did, it was everything that came before it. Everything we ignored, forgave, or explained away. Each mile back to the house brought memories sharper than the last. They kept stacking one on top of the other until I couldn't breathe. I remembered when Emily was a teenager and we bought her first car. Not new, but safe and reliable. She didn't say thank you then either, just took the keys and drove off to her friend's house. "I didn't ask for a used one," she had muttered. My husband laughed it off. I told myself she'd appreciate it later. She never did. Then there was college. We co-signed the loans, paid her rent the first year, sent care packages with handwritten notes and homemade cookies. She called when she needed something, but rarely just to talk. When she graduated, she invited us to the ceremony, sat with her friends afterward, and took pictures with her boyfriend's family. We had to ask a stranger to take one photo of the three of us, and still we smiled. We told ourselves it was her age, that she'd mature. But it didn't stop. When she got her first job, we helped her move, bought her new furniture, and spent 2 weekends setting up her apartment. She said thanks once, no hug, no card, then left to meet a friend for dinner. The signs were there, years of small dismissals, quiet rejections, subtle erasure. But we kept showing up because that's what parents do, right? We give, we stay, we hope. I looked at my husband as he drove. His face was unreadable, but I saw the tightness in his jaw and the way his fingers tapped the steering wheel. He felt it, too, the years, the hurt, all of it rising now that the curtain had been pulled back. When we got home, I didn't even go inside right away. I sat on the porch holding the silver-wrapped box. That necklace had been my mother's. She wore it at her wedding, I had worn it at mine. Emily had once played with it as a child, spinning in front of the mirror, saying, "I want this when I get married." She didn't even glance at the box today. Inside, I heard my husband on the phone canceling payments. His voice was calm but sharp. I knew that tone, it only came out when he'd reached a breaking point. I finally went inside, set the box on the kitchen table, and sat down across from it like it was a person I needed to confront. Then I opened my laptop. Emails, dozens of them. All the wedding planning we had been looped into, then slowly pushed out of. We decided to go with a different cake vendor. Can you just send the deposit directly to the planner? It'll be easier. We moved the rehearsal to Friday afternoon. Hope that still works for you. Hope. They always hoped, but never asked. Emily and her fiancé had positioned us as assistants, support staff, never family. The longer I read, the more it became clear we were only invited to contribute, not to be part of it. I scrolled through my texts with her. Short answers, delayed responses, messages left on read. One stood out. Me, are you free this weekend? Would love to have lunch. Just us. Her, can't. Wedding errands. Maybe another time. Another time never came. And yet I kept trying. The resentment was no longer a sharp sting, it was steady, a pulse beneath everything I did. I made dinner that night on autopilot. Stirred the sauce, set the table, washed my hands twice because I forgot I already had. My husband didn't say much. We were both trying to process what we'd allowed, not just today, but for years. After we ate, he pulled out the box with the wedding invoices and laid them out one by one. Venue still owed. Florist, deposit made, balance unpaid. Photographer, final payment due this week. Band half paid, half pending. She never confirmed the final guest count with the caterer, he said they might not even have enough food. I stared at the papers. Each line was a reminder of what we gave and how little it mattered. It wasn't just about money, it was the absence of care. The decision to exclude us from the moment she had claimed as her own after we built it. Later that evening, the calls started. Unknown number, voicemail, then her number, Emily. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Then she texted, "What is going on? Why is everything shutting down?" I read the message 3 times. She didn't say, "Why did you leave?" or "I'm sorry." She asked why her event was falling apart. No acknowledgement of what she did. No remorse. Just panic over the consequences. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, another message. "Did you cancel everything?" That's so cruel. How could you ruin the most important day of my life? I stared at the screen. The most important day of her life. Ours didn't matter. Our place didn't matter. I typed one sentence, "You told us we weren't invited, so we left." And that was it. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full of years of choices, of the slow erosion of something we didn't want to admit had been breaking. Emily made her choice. We were making ours. And it started with finally stepping back from people who only called when they needed something. That night, I didn't sleep much. But for once, it wasn't because I was worried. It was because I finally understood the truth. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And you don't go back. The next morning, I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the sun rise without a trace of warmth. My husband came in, poured a cup, and sat across from me without a word. We didn't need words. We were both thinking the same thing, we were done begging to be included. We were done explaining why we mattered. A few more texts arrived that day from her friends, from her new in-laws, all asking why we acted out. They didn't ask what Emily had said. They didn't know we were told to leave. She hadn't told them. She painted us as difficult, as dramatic, as ungrateful. It didn't matter. We had the receipts, the contracts, the records, and the truth. And that was enough because for the first time we were choosing ourselves. It felt like a door closing softly, not with anger, but with peace. I didn't answer the phone for 3 days. Every call, every text, every message that buzzed across the screen, I let them sit. Not because I didn't see them, but because I needed to sit with myself first. I had to look at the reality I had denied for too long. I spent the third day going through old folders in the hall closet, contracts, bank transfers, emails I had printed. I opened an envelope with our last will and testament, still naming Emily as our sole beneficiary. I stared at it for a long time. What had we done? I went into the living room. My husband was watching the news, though he wasn't really watching. I handed him the envelope. "We need to talk to someone," I said. He didn't hesitate. He just nodded. That afternoon, we made an appointment with a financial planner, not our usual one, someone new, someone with no ties to Emily. I wanted someone who would look at our accounts like we were just names and numbers, not a family on the edge of something irreversible. At the office, we explained our situation carefully. Not all the emotions or the humiliation, just the facts. We paid for a wedding we weren't allowed to attend. We were removed from the event but still financially bound to it. The planner blinked. "And you want to know how to secure your assets going forward?" "That," I said, "and how to limit access." He asked about joint accounts and shared financial documents. "She doesn't have access," I said. "Not directly," my husband added, "but she's persuasive. She knows how to make it seem like an emergency." The planner smiled, polite but not warm. He had heard this before. We left with a folder of options, trust structures, emergency freezes, new wills, all the tools people don't think they need until they're too deep in the guilt. That night, while I folded laundry, a memory hit me so hard I dropped a towel. I was 19. My father had just remarried. One evening, I showed up at his house without calling first. His new wife answered the door. He stood behind her. He didn't invite me in. He said, "You should have called first. This is our space now." That sting, that shame, I hadn't felt it in years. But I felt it again when my daughter used those same words. "This is my day. You're not invited." And just like that, I was back on that doorstep. Unwanted. And then something strange happened. I began to feel angry, not just hurt. And that was new. The next morning, I sat down with my laptop and opened Emily's social media. There it was, photos from what was left of the wedding. Captions filled with phrases like resilient love and unshakable bond. Not one mention of us. A photo of her and her new in-laws, smiling, laughing. I looked closer. That dress, it was altered. Not the one she chose with me. The one we paid for was sent back. I remembered she said it didn't fit the theme. Another picture, her and the groom standing beside a simple arch, not the floral arch we ordered. That must have been taken down when the florist left. And still, she pretended it all went smoothly. My chest tightened. She didn't just exclude us, she erased us. My phone buzzed. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Is this Emily's mother?" "Yes." "Hi, my name is Jessica. I work for Rachel Flowers and Events. We handled some of the floral arrangements at your daughter's wedding." Handled? We received a partial cancellation, then the event stopped mid-prep. I just wanted to clarify what to invoice. Partial cancellation. I realized Emily must have tried to salvage it, tried to rebook things behind our backs after we pulled the payments. Likely called the vendors in a panic. Send the invoice to me directly, I said. We'll settle the remaining cancellation fees. Nothing more. Understood. I hung up. Another lie. Another attempt to work around us, not with us. I pulled out the wedding planner folder again. This time I read everything: trusts, transfers, contingencies. My husband came in from the garage. I showed him the page I'd bookmarked. I want to do it. All of it. Are you sure? We spent 28 years thinking she'd come around. He didn't argue. By the end of the week, we had met with a lawyer, set up new documentation, removed Emily from automatic inheritance, and changed access to all joint accounts. The lawyer was sharp, kind, but focused. You don't have to justify this, she said. You're protecting yourselves. That's what responsible people do. We also asked about future protections, a clause for any attempt at manipulation or pressure. Clear boundaries. She helped us create them. That night, Emily finally called again. I answered. Hi, Mom. Just hearing her voice made something cold rise in me. Hi. I feel like everything spiraled out of control. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed the day to be perfect. I waited. I thought you understood how much pressure I was under. You know how weddings are. Blame shifting. You told us to leave. I didn't mean it like that. You said we weren't invited. Silence. Then, can we just move past this? No, I said. What do you mean? I mean, we're not going to pretend it didn't happen. And we're not going back to how things were. She started crying. Tears, after everything. I don't know what else to say. You said enough. You made your choice. Now we're making ours. I could have yelled. I could have screamed all the things she had taken from us, the way she had used our love like a credit line. But I chose to remain calm because sometimes silence is the sharpest answer. I hung up. It was quiet afterward, but it was the right kind of quiet because we were finally free from the loop. The loop where love meant sacrifice and silence. Now it meant boundaries and consequences. And something in me finally began to heal. And then, just before bed, I opened a drawer and pulled out an old family photo. The three of us, taken at a beach years ago. I stared at it for a long time. Then I slid it into a folder labeled "What We Let Go." And I felt lighter than I had in years. By the following Monday, something in me had shifted. I didn't announce it, I didn't cry about it, and I didn't even bring it up over breakfast. I just opened my laptop, clicked through my saved folders, and began putting things in motion. The first thing I did was contact the lawyer again. I wanted every document updated, signed, notarized, and legally sealed. Emily was no longer the default heir, not out of spite, but out of necessity. We weren't punishing her, we were protecting ourselves. The calm that settled over me during this process was unfamiliar but welcome. For the first time in years, I didn't feel desperate to fix everything. I didn't feel like I had to patch things up before they fell apart. They had already fallen apart, and we were still standing. The lawyer called to confirm everything had gone through. It's all finalized, she said. You've secured everything. I thanked her and hung up. My hand hovered over the phone for a moment, no shaking, no second-guessing. Later that day, I emailed our bank. I requested that all joint accounts with our daughter be reviewed. No more emergency transfers, no more requests that came at midnight. We switched banks altogether the following week, clean slate. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the pattern. Every time Emily had needed something, we had responded like trained reflexes. From the time she was 15 and wanted that designer dress for prom, everyone else is wearing something nice, I don't want to look poor, to just 2 months ago when she asked us to cover the extra fees for the wedding planner she had changed without telling us. Every time she got what she wanted, and every time she gave a little less of herself back. So now, we were drawing the line. Then the storm hit. When Emily found out about the legal changes, the calls didn't just come from her, they came from everyone. "How could you?" she screamed over voicemail. "You just cut me out like I'm nothing after everything I've been through. You think this is fair? You blindsided me." I didn't even get a conversation, just lawyers and papers. Her voice cracked, but it wasn't sadness, it was fury. The next day, her husband called again, but this time his tone had changed. "This is vindictive," he said flatly. "You're causing irreparable damage. Don't think this won't affect your future." Then came the texts, long, angry paragraphs from Emily. "You always made me feel like I owed you everything. Maybe this is what you wanted, to control me until the very end. I'm your daughter, not your employee. You act like love should come with contracts." Then a group chat sprang up, extended family, mutual friends, some names I hadn't seen in years. Somehow she had pulled them in. We heard what happened. "This is wrong. You're still her parents." She was emotional, but this is too far. Undo it. Be the bigger person. And then she said something I'll never forget: "You've always been selfish. This just proves it." That word hit harder than any scream. Selfish. After decades of giving, after covering rent, tuition, phone bills, therapy sessions, wedding bills, selfish. I laughed. For the first time in days, I laughed out loud. It wasn't joy, it was disbelief, because only someone who had never really seen me could call me that. But the most unexpected thing happened a week later, a message from my younger sister, someone I hadn't spoken to deeply in months. She said, "I saw what Emily posted. I'm sorry, but I get it now. I always thought you were overprotective. Now I see you were just always cleaning up after her." For once, someone saw it. I cried, not because I was sad, but because someone finally saw me. I made a list of everything Emily still had from us: gifts, accounts, shared services. I started removing our names, unsubscribing, disconnecting. She might not have noticed yet, but the ties were being cut. Not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. That week, I also made an appointment with a counselor, someone to talk to, not about Emily, but about how I had allowed myself to disappear into motherhood so completely that I didn't see it happening. She asked me a question during our second session that stopped me cold: "What would your life have looked like if you hadn't been a parent?" I had no answer because for 30 years, that had been my identity: provider, peacemaker, background character in someone else's life story. Now I had to find my own. Friday evening, the phone rang. Not Emily this time, her husband. I debated answering, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Mrs. Holloway." "Hi, it's David." "Yes." He hesitated. "I just wanted to check in. Emily's been going through a tough time." I let the silence stretch. "She misses you," he added. "Does she?" I said. No malice, just truth. I think things just got emotional that day. "She regrets how it happened." "Regret is easy," I said. "Change is harder." He cleared his throat. "Would you consider talking to her again? Maybe coming over. We could have dinner. No pressure." Just try again. I almost said yes out of habit, out of that ingrained sense that we must always be the ones to fix it. But I didn't. No, I said gently. We're not coming over. He didn't argue. He just said, I understand, and hung up. That night, I printed out a copy of the new trust documents and placed them in our safe. I included a letter explaining our decisions, not to justify, just to record. By the weekend, more messages poured in. One friend of Emily's wrote, I always admired your family. I don't understand why you'd take this route. Another said, she's devastated. She feels abandoned. But not one asked what we felt. Not one asked what it was like to be told to leave your own child's wedding, to be erased from a moment you paid for, built up, and held together. The final straw came when Emily sent a voicemail I'll never forget. You broke me, she said, and you'll regret this one day. I played it twice, then deleted it. The week ended with a knock on the door. I opened it to find a delivery, a large envelope. Inside, a formal invitation to a reconciliation dinner at a restaurant we once loved, with a handwritten note, let's talk. Let's fix this. Love, Emily. I read it twice, and then I placed it in the same folder as the old family photo. Not to attend, but to remember the moment I chose peace over performance. And I didn't go. It started with a silence I didn't expect. After I ignored the invitation to the reconciliation dinner, days went by without a word from Emily. I thought maybe, just maybe, she understood that my quiet refusal had made more noise than any angry confrontation ever could. But I was wrong. A week later, the retaliation began. First, she posted a photo of her and David at the restaurant, captioned, even when your own family gives up on you, love finds a way. People flooded the comments. You deserve better. Some parents don't appreciate what they have. You're so strong. I watched as the narrative changed, not to the truth, but to a version of it that cast me as the villain, that blamed me for protecting myself. Then came the private messages. From a former neighbor, hey, just saw Emily's post. Are you two okay? From an old coworker, sorry to intrude, but I hope you're hanging in there. Family stuff is hard. From my cousin, can you just tell your side? Because this looks bad. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I poured myself some tea, sat by the window, and stared into the garden. The roses I'd planted last spring were finally blooming, red, resilient, unapologetic. That day, I took out the folder where I'd placed her note, the wedding receipts, the trust documents, everything. I flipped through each page slowly, not with sadness anymore, but with clarity. Every dollar we spent, every word we weren't allowed to say, every hug we forced ourselves to give when our arms felt empty. I remembered her 6th birthday when she ran into my arms after we surprised her with a pony ride. I remembered the night she broke her arm and I stayed awake for 48 hours by her hospital bed. I remembered the time she failed her driving test and cried in the car for an hour while I held her hand. I had always been there, but at some point, I stopped being a person to her, I became a service. And when services stop, people complain. The phone rang again. David. This time I let it go to voicemail. He sounded tired. We didn't think you'd actually go through with all of this. Emily's not doing well. She's angry, yes, but also confused. She's used to you fixing things. She's used to you showing up. I stopped the message there. I didn't need to hear the rest. That night, I wrote a letter, not to send, just for me. I wrote down everything I never said out loud. About how it felt to be left out of your only child's wedding. About the way I'd stopped recognizing my own voice because it was always drowned out by other people's needs. About how painful it was to realize that love, when taken for granted, can become invisible. I ended it with one line, "I love you, but I love myself now, too." Then I folded it and tucked it into the back of the folder. The next day, we received a formal letter from her lawyer, a request for mediation regarding financial concerns. She wanted access to a fund we had once created for her education but never closed. My hands shook as I read it, not with fear, but with exhaustion. She was still asking, still reaching, still expecting. That afternoon, I went to the bank and permanently closed the account. I didn't leave a note. I didn't explain. I let the silence speak for me. A few days later, my husband and I went out for breakfast. It was quiet, simple. We split a plate of pancakes and talked about painting the kitchen. For the first time in months, we didn't talk about Emily, and it felt okay. Then, as we walked back to the car, a woman approached me, someone I didn't recognize. "Are you Emily's mother?" I paused. Yes. I just wanted to say, I read what she wrote, and then I read what you posted. Your story made me rethink a lot of things with my own daughter. Thank you for being brave. I nodded, stunned. I hadn't posted anything public, just a short reflection in a private forum for parents, but it reached someone. That night, I sat on the porch, the folder beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't plan. I just breathed. And I realized I didn't need her to apologize anymore. She may never understand what she did. She may always believe her version of the story. But I had stepped out of the role I was never meant to live in forever. I was no longer the fixer, no longer the bank, no longer the silence, just me, standing, breathing, living. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. And if you've ever stayed quiet to keep the peace, maybe it's time to let your silence speak.
Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our powerful health tips. Thanks for watching.